Nice to see all your smiling faces this morning. Okay. So I had nothing to talk about today. And then Gary saved me because he sent that email about Groundhog Day. And I thought, yeah, that would be a good place to start, given that it's only 2 days late. Okay. So what he said is absolutely correct. The author of that script was or is a Buddhist, a Zen Buddhist practitioner. And so he at least imbued that with a Buddhist flavor. Now, I'm sure most, if not all of you, remember the plot is pretty complex. So I'll go over it again. Bill Murray, curmudgeonly, nasty, narcissistic reporter, right, in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, for the great revealing of Phil. And also has a crush on his colleague, his fellow reporter who's there with him from his whatever. I guess he's from a TV station. It's been a few years since I've seen the movie. And then something happens, right? He can't get out of Groundhog Day. He's stuck there somehow. And so that day keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And several things happen along the way. First he's distraught and miserable, and all of these, his day that's repeating is full of all these sort of mundane events in this little town in Pennsylvania. But gradually certain transformational things start to happen, right? And meanwhile, also he's trying to impress this woman. So he starts doing some nice things, not because he thinks he ought to do nice things, but because he thinks that she'll be impressed if he does nice things, right? And so he slowly begins to transform into a better person, sort of not for the right reason, but to get the girl reason. But anyway, without going into all of the rest, which I don't remember, over time it transforms, and he starts being nicer and kinder and helpful. And eventually, what was this monotonous repetition of his life becomes a joyous repetition of his life. And he's loving every day, helping people and being part of the community and so on and so forth. Eventually it ends. All of a sudden he has a new day. He's back in the ordinary reality. But he is not the same person. He's completely transformed into this sort of bodhisattva. Now, there's a lot of interesting dimensions to this. First of all, well, this is ostensibly a Zen movie. How much time have we devoted to talking about rebirth and future lives? All right. Anybody been paying attention? Right? Yeah, like this. Right? It's not a Zen theme. It is a classical, what I call classical Buddhist theme, right? And in classical Buddhism, there's excuse me, a belief in a rebirth, and in the idea that in each successive birth, we have the option to do better and better, just like Bill Murray. And eventually, if we do good enough, I'm not sure who makes that determination, we get to step off the wheel of life and death and continue perpetually in nirvana. That's not in Pennsylvania, by the way. That's over the border in Ohio. So that's a whole aspect of Buddhism that Zen doesn't pay much attention to, or any attention. And yet, the idea of being focused on a single day, on a day that repeats itself, in many ways is a very Zen idea. Right? It's just that we're not going anywhere. You know, our lives are by and large ordinary. And probably most of us do very similar things every day. I mean, one day we might have eggs, and the next day we might have cereal, and things get varied like that. We wear the blue shirt, we wear the green shirt, whatever. But by and large, our days are made up of the same things, right? We get up, we wash, we brush our teeth, da da da. We make our breakfast, we get ready for work, we go to work. If we're working, if we're tired, we just lay back in our loungers and feel the sun on our face. And then eating everything. So most of our days are repetitions. That's not a unique thing to Bill Murray's entombment in Groundhog Day. And in fact, our lives are made up by and large of repetitious, mundane things. Some of us more or less than others, but most of us fundamentally, it's the same things. We don't get up every day and some fantastic, exciting thing happens, and we just, are overwhelmed all day with the wonder of things going on around us, so that we just, it's stuff. We make sandwiches. We go for walks. We do it, and again, often with a very repetitious nature. So to me, this is the profound aspect of the movie. It's pointing out to us our reality. In Zen, we have the saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Okay? Our lives are always made up of these very ordinary and mundane kinds of things. And if we're going to have fulfillment, if we're going to have satisfaction, if we're going to appreciate this life and use it well, that's the stuff that we've got to make it out of, which is what Bill Murray discovered, right? That was the fundamental truth. He didn't have big, exciting things happening every day. Every day he did the same things. He talked to the same people, he walked into the same stores, blah, blah, blah. But eventually he transformed it into a dance where everybody that he met was his partner in the dance, and they danced together. And he had a few moments of connection, of pleasure, of intimacy, and of his being able to be helpful, to being able to act as a bodhisattva. That was the essence of his life, or what it became. And that is the essence of all of our lives. That's a fundamental truth that we often rail against. The message that this society gives us is that every day should be fantastic. Amazing things should happen. We should acquire fantastic things, right? And so our lives should not be built up out of these kind of mundane, repetitive things, but out of great flashes of excitement and wonder and so on and so forth. And in fact, of course, those things do happen. But I bet if you look back over the last week, you would find far more times when you were just repeating the mundane things rather than having fantastic flashes of wonder. Now, that's very pernicious myth because it encourages us to try to seek those things rather than to find satisfaction in the ordinary. And I frankly, I think it's one of the things that drives the terrible epidemic of addiction in this country. We believe that we need those dopamine rushes. We need those flashes of brilliance, that just doing the ordinary things isn't enough. Now I'm going to make this a little more complicated. Because it is, our lives are more complicated. Sip here. Some of you, perhaps all of you, everybody remember the old Superman comics. I don't want to accuse any of you of being older than you. Well, Robert's quite young, so anyway, you may also remember in the Superman comics, there was a place called the Bizarro universe. Gary remembers. Okay. And there was even a Bizarro Superman. And even when he was trying to be helpful, he fucked everything up and so on and so on. And the Bizarro universe was a pretty dark place. Things did not happen as they should. Things went wrong constantly, what we would see as wrong constantly. Well, guess what? We are not only in Groundhog Day, but we're in Groundhog Day in the Bizarro universe. I mean, holy cow. Who knew that the White House, the President of the United States, had contrived to have Taylor Swift get together with Travis Kelce so that they will be able to reveal their love of Biden and cause him to win the election? I mean, I thought she was just a pop singer. I had no idea. In fact, so up to about 2 months ago, I had no idea who she was. I was like, oh, now I know who she is. So that's, I suppose, progress. But anyway, so if you think about it, we are simultaneously in Groundhog Day, but in the Bizarro universe. These incredibly everyday insane things. I mean, there's people that were, excuse me, in the presidential race who are promoting the Travis and Taylor conspiracy. It just extraordinary time that we're living in. So if it feels like the bizarro universe some days, that's because it is. I think it has to do with the collider in Bern, and that they switched us, like switched the channels accidentally. So we're no longer in the universe that we were born in. We're now in this other one. Good golly, Miss Molly. Not you, Molly. I'm astonished every single day by what's going on around us. It gets stranger and stranger. And somehow our task is, as Zen practitioners, as conscientious human beings, is to both not just live our lives, but to live our lives well. Not just live our lives, but to help other beings. Not just live our lives, but to be kind and compassionate, to be the person that Bill Murray becomes towards the end of the movie. Okay. See, that's weird, right? Here I am, a Zen teacher, using Bill Murray as the paradigm of bodhisattvahood. But that's our task. That's what we're ostensibly doing. Taking that ordinary stuff, that repetitious stuff, that stuff that makes up all of our lives, and transforming that into the possibility of being better, of doing better, and of having a better world. And it's just an amazingly daunting task. And I assume that most of you are feeling that. And then we also often have this strange bifurcation that most of the craziest stuff doesn't visit us. So we're actually able to sort of sustain relatively normal lives amidst this greater context that's completely Michigan. And that juxtaposition, that just sometimes, that in itself kind of throws me off. It's like, you know, here I am in my cabin. Things are pretty normal. Today is Woodshed Day. It's kind of up there with Groundhog Day. It's the day that marks my moving from the right side of the woodshed, which is now empty, to the left side of the woodshed, which now has the wood for the rest of the winter. And thankfully, it has enough wood for the rest of the winter. So this is a cause for great merriment and celebration and other things, right? But this is what life. This is what we're making our lives out of. These are the things. I think that the key thing that we all need to do is to recognize this and to celebrate it. I'm not necessarily suggesting that you all should celebrate Woodshed Day with me, but celebrate the things of your lives, the ordinary things. Live them fully. The difference between a Zen archer and an ordinary archer is that the Zen archer imbues their process with a complete dedication of consciousness and effort. They're not like, I'm gonna think, shoot the arrow. No, and it's precise, and that's what makes it Zen. is the concentration, is the precision, is the effort. And Zen archery, much the same way, the same as this Groundhog Day process that we're talking about, right? Repeat, those if, I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to do Kyudo, the Zen archery, but to begin with, they don't even let you have a bow, right? If you went to study Western archery, I presume they would done that, but they would give you a bow and some arrows, and no, Kyudo, you don't get a bow and arrows. You get a thing they call a baby yumi, the yumi being the bow. But the baby yumi is a stick with a neoprene band attached to it. And all you do is pull that neoprene band over and over and over again. But you do it with great, great precision, right? Great attention, over and over and over. And I'm not able to demonstrate what the Kyudo position would look like, but it is absolutely precise. It's like here, not here, not here, not and each time repeated. Okay, that's what makes it a Zen art. Is that concentration, that precision, that use of awareness. So in essence, we're being asked to bring that into every aspect of our lives. That's how we live our Groundhog Day. And to that effort and that precision and all of that, I would add, again, loving kindness and compassion. When Bill Murray in the movie, when he goes walking around the town, when he's sort of his evolved self, he's pleasant, he's helping people, he's shaking hands. He's not doing anything that's remarkable other than being remarkably nice. We all have that opportunity every single moment of every single day, right? So that's the other thing. Rebirth in that context of that movie, when people talk about it, they're kind of thinking of this, again, classical rebirth where where you're going to leave this world and then go to some liminal state and then be returned for your next trip. But in reality, we are reborn every single moment. And every single moment contains all possibilities. Excuse me, we tend to see ourselves as conditioned by our past. And we are that to the extent that we allow ourselves to be. But we also have freedom in every single moment. We can choose how we live every single moment. And so every single moment is fresh and new. It is a new life. It is a new possibility. That's incredibly liberating. I like to talk to people in recovery about that, because it's essentially saying no matter what you've done, it doesn't need to matter. It only matters if you allow it to. But if you choose to change, if you choose to act, if you choose to invest yourself in life in a different way, you absolutely can. We tend to focus on the repetition of the Groundhog Day movie, but it's the freedom. And that's what Bill Murray discovers, right? He can reinvent himself in this very moment. in any moment, in every moment. He can change, he can transform, he can heal, he can share loving kindness and compassion. And that's a capacity that we all have. Every moment is fresh and new. It does not need to be conditioned by the past. Whatever guilt and shame and remorse we're carrying need not have any significance in terms of our actions in the present and the future. I mean, it might, in the sense of we might want to try to do better, we should try to do better, but it doesn't condition us, it doesn't hold us. I'm just thinking back briefly to those monks that we saw in among the white clouds, right? Every day up there in the mountains, living the same way, doing the same things, probably at the same time. And superficially, nothing changes. And yet they're having rich and full lives. Unlike most of us, with all of our diversions, with all of our electronic devices and things, they're completely satisfied because they have the secret, which is to just live fully where we are, whatever we have going on, no matter how boring and repetitious it may seem, and find the fulfillment, find the meaning, find the challenge in living just that way. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Peter. It's amazing how uh, this is a message that somehow I know, but forget over and over and over. And I guess maybe that, I think I've never seen the movie, but I've heard enough about it. I can picture it. Um, and and just this morning, before I started sitting, I was thinking about Joanna Macy, koan that you had us work with, and I'm healing the earth as the earth heals me. But it hasn't been on my mind a whole lot, and until I started sitting today, and part of my thought process was, uh, you know, I have really not been having very many great flashes of wonder recently. And next week, Harry and I are going to the mountains. And I thought, maybe when I'm there out in nature, I will have some great moments of wonder. And uh, sometimes I feel that living in the city and not having access to deep woods, I mean, obviously there are plants and trees around that I try to befriend, but I will regularly think, oh, I should be out in nature. It's going to somehow lift me and transform me and change me. and and every moment has new opportunities. It's just, it's a difficult adage to keep hold of. So I thank you for the reminder. I won't wait to go out to the woods. I'll try not to look for those great flashes of wonder. Um, can't guarantee that, but I think I will watch the movie and try to keep this in mind a little better. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, one of the paradoxes is that when we look for the flashes of wonder, we miss them, right? It- you know, it's something that happens. I can't even describe, but you've all had this experience. You're out walking and you suddenly see a little flower, and it's like, oh my God, look at that flower. And another day you'd be there and, yeah, there's that little yellow flower again, right? Same flower, but there's something about, how we appreciate it, how open we are, and so on and so forth. When we're looking, we're not open. Um, and we can certainly miss many mental experience. But I was going to say, in New Hampshire, if they have a place where you could do bungee jumping while you're there, I think you could have a pretty wonderful experience. Definitely.
Well, something that occurred to me today is that um, we are so inclined to fit an experience into our story. I'm always making up stories to try to figure things out, try to find, um, you know, for help. I tried, but the story changes. And sometimes it just overtakes the experience completely, and we forget the experience. I mean, you can't describe an experience adequately. It's just not possible. So that particular distinction um, is something that just came up today.
Deborah, I would just add to that with what Peter just said about the flower. Um, and someday you might notice it, someday you might not. Uh, I frequently will notice it, but then I kind of make up a story. Oh, look at that beautiful flower. I'm really going to focus on that flower. Oh, it's yellow, it's this. And I go off in my head, which I guess is part of my story, uh, rather than just moving on.
Yeah, the part of the Wendell Berry poem, um, though the beach is golden, I cannot stand beside it mute. I must say it is golden, while the leaves stir and fall with a sound that is not a name,
Wow,
which is,
that's it.
Thank you. Well, the other piece of creating the narrative is trying to hold on. Right? These things are ephemeral. That moment of first seeing the flower, gone. But we want that, we like that. Okay, so we want to grab that. We want to try to hold on to it. And part of the way we do that is through the story and repeating the narrative to ourselves and so on and so forth. And of course, as Deborah points out, we can't even get in the same universe by repeating the story. But,
I want to mention one thing about the movie that I didn't think anything of the first time I saw the movie. But I think it might be the Zen writers consciously commenting on something where at the end of the movie, the woman that he's been trying to win over the whole time, um, there's one of these auctions where you get to buy.
Gary, yeah, Gary, I'll do this.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, now what? Okay, now we got it. So at the end of the movie, um, Andy McDowell wins a date. You know, they're having auctions for dates with various guys at this thing in the town, and Andy McDowell buys the date with Bill Murray because he's such a great guy by that point. And then they're together the next morning, and she sort of makes a joke about how I bought you, I own you, and you know she's just joking, sort of. But I had this thought that it's like he is at the point where the universe owns him in a way. He's not his separate ego trying to strive for things at everybody else's expense, but rather he is sort of owned by the universe and is represented by the actress. I don't know, and so that was something I took from it, you know, and I you know, it was just a throwaway line maybe, but I sort of heard it that this other way this time. So I just thought that was interesting, and you know, so
Well, it is. And, you know, the Bodhisattva is owned by the universe in the sense that they're not writing their script. They're letting reality write the script, and they're responding as is appropriate and needed, you know. And
Also,
we
there's
tend to see that. Oh, go
no,
ahead,
no.
Deborah.
Mm-mm.
No, okay. We tend to see that as being wishy-washy or indifferent, or you know. I was just hearing yesterday, and then I'll shut up and I'll let you talk here. That there was this whole discussion. There was somebody on it was really insightful who was talking about why we sort of promote and reward narcissists, and why narcissists do so well in our culture. I guess the fundamental thing they were discussing was leadership, and why do we choose the kinds of leaders that we choose these very masculine model leaders rather than feminine model leaders. We talk, you know, we take people who are very competitive and hierarchical rather than building cooperation and collaboration and so on and so forth. And at the peak of that pinnacle are the narcissists who our culture rewards again and again and again, because we see that kind of behavior as being decisive and, you know, knowing where they're going and all of that. And, you know, and we're talking about here's the exact opposite, having no idea where we're going. And reality takes us where it needs us, you know.
So I wanted to mention this thing about how presumably he's doing this for the wrong reasons for a long time, that he wants to get the girl. And that could be seen as our kavanah, or our you know, the attraction, the allure. One way or the other, we're attracted into this universe. And but at some point you You don't have to have the allure, attraction to um to participate wholeheartedly as a part of the bodhisattva um unfolding. But it can start with wanting to get the girl, whatever.
Well, I think it almost always does. We've talked about that before. People don't typically come to Zen to be bodhisattvas. They don't come to Zen to lose their selves, if they really understand what that means. They come to feel better. They come to have less stress. They come, to be part of a group. I mean, all kinds of motivations that have, and the bodhisattva motivation is typically something that emerges down the road. And often we've got to let go, I think, of a substantial amount of the cravings of our egos to even begin to have that kind of aspiration. If we aspire to be bodhisattvas, we aspire to be great bodhisattvas and, have Bill Murray play us in the movie, instead of just be there.
Deborah, I would just add to that the attraction for the girl, I think what I was experiencing was the attraction of the great flash of wonder.
I think today for me was right on target because this past week I found myself somewhat depressed, and the reason was that I was getting extremely tired of the everyday. Here I am doing that again. Here I am doing that again, and it leads down a wrong path, kind of a rabbit hole that I don't want to be in. And in thinking about that with your talk, I remember a phrase that we put great stock in when I was an undergraduate, which is don't mistake activity for achievement. And now I'm beginning to understand that achievement needs to be parsed, that the kind of thing that was probably keeping me feeling badly about doing the everyday was I was not, quote unquote, getting anywhere, unquote. And as Susan was talking too, I know better than that. And I've been around Buddhism long enough to understand the importance of the everyday and recognizing it. But uh, there's a nice phrase in Eliot that says, I got the point, but missed the meaning. And I think that kind of has been happening to me. And so this was right on target. And a second comment entirely, I remember a talk by a professor who was talking about artists in a lecture. And he, as you began, Peter, by saying there are some things that are kind of given to us, in the everyday, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to stay alive, we make breakfast and so forth. And he said, an artist always has one shoe nailed to the floor, and that is the age he's born in. That's because you can tell a 30s painting, because that's all the stuff that you've got. It's things that you're limited with, given the scope of your knowledge at that time. Your other foot is free. And he said a real creative person will use that foot and truly explore and truly look. It was kind of a nice message to hear, particularly for those in that group who are artists. But anyway, it seemed to be somewhat on track or paralleling what you're saying. Anyway, thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Cal. Anybody final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll sneak something in really quick, if I may. Sometimes there's so many thoughts bubbles, I don't know how to make them coherent. I think that because of our collective individual egos, we sort of make this society so where that sort of how dare you not be amazing and how dare you not achieve the stars and be the best and be brilliant and be wowed all the time. So we're kind of addicted to stacking wows together throughout the course of our lives, right? Like we're addicted to just having the experience, and we see that in wellness too, right? I mean, let's go to this retreat or hear this genius person or read this book or this podcast. So we're kind of acculturated into being very, very special ourselves and then being wowed by special people as often as we can or special experiences. And so that is what we're born into and what we hear and what we co-create. And I think a lot of this, what I'm learning is falling out of that and not. And when we talk about bringing like chop wood and fetch water, it's bringing it to this moment and recognizing when my inclination is to, what's the next thing I could be doing? Or what's the next thing I could be achieving? This, for me, the gold or the treasure is recognizing that, sort of forgiving myself for that, and being right here. So I have two golden retrievers who I'm lucky enough to live near a off-leash park, acres and acres of woods. And when I walk my dogs, I have to walk them a spell before I get to the woods. So I'm like, in that spell, I'm like, first of all, one of my dogs is really annoying, so I'm irritated by him. And then I'm like, what am I doing today? And what am I achieving? And when am I going to meditate? And, what am I going to this? And what, all that shit. And what did my wife say about what she mean by this? And then I get into the woods and all that stuff's still going on. And then I'm like, oh, I'm in the effing woods. I should be wowed by a birch tree. Peter would be wowed by a birch tree. So then, and that's when it like clicks. I'm like, whoa, that's chop wood, fetch water, right? Because then I'm like, no, just this, just here in Hinkley Park with my dogs. I don't need to be wowed by anything. I don't need to be bowled over by anything. I can forgive myself for all the shit I was thinking about on the way here. And I can just be in a cold park surrounded by trees and look at trees. And if I don't have to have a mystical experience. I'm just going to walk. And that's what Zen has given me. It's just like meditating in life. Just always bringing it back, as often as I can. Bring it back. And you can call it mundane, but the more I get in touch with mundane, the more I can set the ego free, and the more I'm like, oh, this is it. It's not a burning bush somewhere. It's boring. And I don't say that as a pejorative. I say that as it's just, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And to be perfectly clear, I don't have mystical experiences every time I go into the woods. Usually every other, maybe every third time. No, it's like chasing enlightenment. There's things that they just come when they want to come, not when we want them to come. They have their own timing, and you can walk many miles in the woods and just walk many miles in the woods. But then we go, oh, that wasn't so bad, right? We get attached to to the flashes of brilliance, of wonder, you know. And again, that little flower, it's wondrous, you know. But we'll walk, you know, we just stepped on it. So a lot of it is just paying attention to what's there all the time and realizing how special that is. You know, but the other thing, you know, what you talk about at the beginning of, you know, you talked about goes on all the time in Zen, you know, and it's of interest to me as a phenomenon. How, you know, how much attachment to our own wonderfulness is that we think that we should have a special celebrated Zen teacher. You know, so there are people who are living 10 miles from a wonderful teacher, but they're traveling 3,000 miles to San Francisco to have the teacher that's, you know, right for them. That's supreme egotism, you know, and it's, again, people overlooking, you know, there are so many wonderful teachers in this country. Now it's growing and growing. Most have little sanghas like this. Most are not celebrated and you know, on the cover of Tricycle every month. And they all have a lot to teach. So it's sort of an incredible narcissistic hubris that we think, oh, I've got to go, you know, and that's so there's the koan about that, about gobblers of dregs, right? You know, but that's what the Chan travelers used to do. They go from place to place. They'd hear, oh, so and so gives great Dharma talks, and they'd go over there. And then while they were there, somebody would say, oh, you really should hear the Dharma talks over at, you know, Yanshan's, up, and then off they'd go, chasing around. And as they're doing that, they're missing the Dharma. You know, so we do that with everything.
There's a line in a poem by a Spanish poet that I particularly like. It's traveler, there is no path. The path is made by walking.
Thank you. Okay, are we close to the end? Are we at the end? All right, I guess we are. Just yeah. Gary, I wanted to respond to an email that you said yesterday, and I just haven't had the chance yet, so I will get to that a little later today. Okay.
Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. Reality is boundless. I vow to perceive it. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Okay, thank you, everybody. If any of you are called on to come up and celebrate Woodshed Day with me today, feel free.
Thank you, everyone.